Actually, I went to the bathroom in my pants once on a plane.
It wasn't a lot.
It was just a little bit?
It was a teeny. It was a sneeze.
Maybe we should get the pull-ups.
What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock NBA, and if you've watched my other videos, you know that I believe the 2000s are the absolute peak of human civilization. Jesus is my homeboy shirts, trucker hats, movies like The Girl Next Door, and of course, the golden era of pop punk. And one of the most important bands of that era was New Found Glory. They may not have sold as many albums as Good Charlotte or Simple Plan, but I would argue that aside from Blink-182, they were probably the most influential band of that generation, bridging pop punk with hardcore in a way that had just never been done before, and bringing the idea of breakdowns to millions of kids. And to give you an example of what I mean, two of the next generation of pop punk's biggest bands, All Time Low and The Story So Far, were both named after New Found Glory lyrics, and their sound of pop punk with breakdowns was the template for an entire subgenre called easycore, with bands like A Day to Remember and 4 Years Strong basically picking up where they left off, and even Fall Out Boy started being highly influenced by New Found Glory. So the question is, how did they do it? How did they go from their roots as a small band in the South Florida hardcore scene to being all over TRL, making videos with Rachel Lee Cook, and selling millions of albums? And also, what is their lasting impact and legacy? Those are the questions that I will answer in this video. But first, if you haven't, please check out my second channel. I think it's pretty fun, and I post a lot more videos there. There's a link to that in the description of this video. NFL fans, the season is starting to heat up with big plays and even bigger wins. And this video is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL, and I am here to share an exciting new offer with you. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now at the link in the description and sign up using my promo code PUNKROCK. That's right, new customers bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Whether you're a Saturday college football fan or die hard for the NFL, DraftKings has betting options for you. DraftKings customers can also get some skin in the game with same-game parlays. That's where you combine multiple bets for the same game for a chance at an even bigger payout. And if you're already signed up for DraftKings, like me, you can get a no-sweat bet each game day through September. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now at the link in the description of this video. New customers use the code PUNKROCK, bet just $5 on any wager, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code PUNKROCK only at DraftKings Sportsbook. New Found Glory formed in 1996 in the town of Coral Gables, Florida. Jordan and Steve met when they were working at Red Lobster, and after their band broke up, they eventually met Ian and recruited Chad from the hardcore band that he was singing for called Shai Hulud, and New Found Glory was formed, or as they were originally called, A New Found Glory. And they quickly recorded their first EP called All About the Girls with their original drummer Joe Moreno, aka Taco Joe.
Never put the blame on anybody's ever mine. Well, I'm still searching for my pride.
And as Chad later said about this EP, the drums on it are so bad, it's so off time, and it sounds like someone's thrown a handful of change in the drum set. Clearly, they needed a new drummer, so they got Cyrus Baluki, and after chipping in with the money that they made from their jobs working at Subway and the movie theater, they recorded their first album, Nothing Gold Can Stay.
The needle on my record player has been wearing thin.
You may have seen it on Drive-Thru, but it actually originally came out on Eulogy Recordings, which was started by John Wiley of the South Florida hardcore band Morning Again, along with Ian Rowan. And this is when Chad was still in Shai Hulud. So from the very beginning, the band had very deep roots in the hardcore scene. I think now most people kind of think of them as being part of the same thing as Good Charlotte and Sum 41, which they definitely were. But back when they came out, they were really more part of the same thing as bands like Lifetime, Get Up Kids, and Saves the Day, meaning bands that played pop punk, but in terms of their heritage, were definitely from the hardcore scene, which to me was kind of the perfect combination. These were kids that grew up seeing people get their faces smashed in at Madball shows, but musically they sounded much closer to Green Day than Bulldoze. It was fun and accessible, but without the kind of corniness of a lot of the other pop punk bands. And even back then, it was immediately obvious that this band had much bigger potential than to play for 300 kids at a skate park. They caught the attention of a then new label called Drive-Thru Records by way of Gabe Saporta, who at the time was in a pop punk band called Midtown, but would go on to start Cobra Starship. As Drive-Thru co-founder Stephanie Rains said, Gabe insisted on playing us a band. He stood outside our car in the snow, singing along as we listened to Nothing Gold Can Stay. We fell in love instantly and we knew we had to have them. And so Drive-Thru licensed Nothing Gold Can Stay from Eulogy for $5,000 and re-released it, followed by From the Screen to Your Stereo, which was an EP of songs that originally appeared in kind of like teen movies, including one of my sort of low-key favorite New Found Glory songs, That Thing You Do. And putting out an EP of covers was kind of an odd choice as their first recording on Drive-Thru, but I think it really captured a lot of what made the band great. Like, even though they came from the hardcore scene and that was like very obvious, they also loved movies like Titanic and Karate Kid, and they talked about going to chain restaurants like Olive Garden and Red Lobster. It kind of felt like it was just like me and my friends that would listen to Earth Crisis on our way to go see Clueless. And I didn't know any of them, but still it kind of felt like we were already friends, if that makes sense. And based on the success of their first album, they were upstream to MCA, who had a relationship with Drive-Thru, and they were officially a major label band with the release of their self-titled album in 2000. And this album, and more specifically this song, was basically perfect to me. Like, this was everything I could have dreamed of at the time. A super catchy song, snapcase poster on the wall of their practice space, and somehow they even got my celebrity crush Rachel Lee Cook to be in the video. They were truly living the dream. And all of that was very intentional. As Chad Gilbert said about the album, we wanted the rhythm and chunkiness of New York hardcore mixed with an element of the West Coast punk rock that was going on at the time, and nothing really sounded like that back then. And I think it was exactly that. It definitely fit in with bands like Blink and NoFX, but at the same time, you could very clearly see and hear that hardcore edge. Mark Hoppus heard the album and loved it and kind of took them under his wing, bringing them out on tour with Blink-182 and hooking them up with Blink's manager Rick DeVoe. And eventually the entire band moved out to California to be closer to the label. The stars were all aligned for big things to happen with New Found Glory, and that is exactly what happened with the release of their second album, Sticks and Stones, in 2002, led by the single My Friends Over You.
And to model for our sketch artist is someone who we all know and love from the New Found Glory videos. It's bassist Ian. Ian, come on out here, man.
And interestingly, that song almost didn't make it onto the album. They wrote it at kind of the last minute on the last day in the studio, and the rest is history. The song eventually hit the Billboard Hot 100, and maybe most importantly, it was also a hit on MTV during the peak of the whole TRL pop punk thing, along with Blink, Sum 41, Simple Plan, and Good Charlotte.
I'm here with Jordan. How you feeling, man?
I'm all good. How are you?
Your new tattoo looks good. The Good Charlotte tattoo on your ankle.
Thank you.
This was the absolute biggest platform that a band could have to reach that sort of core teenage audience watching every day after school, and it worked. They had officially broken through to become a legit mainstream band. They had come a long way from the days when my friends and I thought Chad was an idiot for quitting Shai Hulud to be in his little pop punk band. One of my personal favorite moments was the Honda Civic tour that they did with Good Charlotte. I just love the picture of them with their custom Civic and Chad in his Bane hoodie, because to me it was just so crazy to see hardcore in the mainstream like that. And of course, Chad's legendary appearance on MTV Cribs in his DMS shirt.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Chad. I play guitar in New Found Glory, and this is my...
They followed all that up in 2004 with their next album, Catalyst. And from what they said years later, it sounds like they had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder with this album. As Chad put it, after the success of Sticks and Stones, we were lumped in with a lot of poppy bands, and that was weird for us because we came from a hardcore punk rock background. Then after we had some commercial success, all of a sudden we were quote unquote poppy, so we set out to prove otherwise. And with Catalyst, they definitely made their point. The thing that's immediately obvious about this album is that they incorporated more hardcore influences than ever before. Like, the opening song is 37 seconds long and sounds pretty much straight off of a Gorilla Biscuits album. There's also the song At Least I'm Known for Something, which brought in a lot of chuggy double bass kind of elements and basically created the entire genre of easycore. Chad also did a side project that year called Hazen Street with members of Madball, H2O, Cro-Mags, and Boxcar Racer. Catalyst was their highest charting album to date, eventually hitting number 3 on Billboard, which is pretty insane considering that the opening is a 30-second hardcore song. But despite that, the band was getting a little bit lost in the shuffle with their label and was about to hit the lowest point in their career. In 2006, they released Coming Home, which was by far the most divisive album of their career, going in a darker, more moody kind of direction. As Chad said about the album, one side of us, I think, felt like if we just made another punk record, nobody would care. We were like, if we just do another punk album, it's just going to sound like the other ones. Which I can totally understand, but at the time, the fans really didn't like it. And to be honest, I was one of them. Personally, this is easily my least favorite New Found Glory album, although I do respect that they tried something new, and the album has become somewhat of a fan favorite over time. It was also barely promoted by the label. There was one music video that sort of didn't really ever get a lot of airplay, and it seemed like the album just kind of came and went. And so it kind of felt like maybe New Found Glory had run out of steam and this was the beginning of the end for them. But shortly after that, there were signs of life. In 2008, they put out the Tip of the Iceberg EP on the hardcore label Bridge 9, which had 3 new original songs, as well as covers of Gorilla Biscuits, Shelter, and Lifetime. Personally, I think it's one of the coolest things they did. It's kind of like very raw and stripped down. I love it. And in 2009, they came back with Not Without a Fight, which many people felt like was kind of a return to form for them. But what's interesting, and I was kind of surprised to find out, is the band seems like they don't necessarily love it. As Chad said, I just didn't feel really attached to it personally, and I think the band was in a weird spot. We were signing to a new label and maybe less inspired. But personally, I loved this album. I remember seeing them on this tour with a mutual friend who was going through a divorce at the time, shortly after Chad had gotten divorced, and I had gone through this like awful breakup, and seeing them play Don't Let Her Pull You Down just really kind of hit different. But regardless of the fact that the band may not have loved it, with this album, New Found Glory was officially back. They had made it out of that low period around Coming Home. They released Radio Surgery next, which was another somewhat divisive album. Personally, I thought it was good. But what followed next was easily the worst thing to ever happen to the band, when founding guitarist Steve Klein was accused of inappropriate behavior with a minor. He was immediately kicked out of the band and they continued on without him. And the band came back with their next album, Resurrection, which really felt like a statement that they weren't going to let this stop them. And also kind of a direct shot at Steve, especially the song The Worst Person. They followed Resurrection up with Make Me Sick in 2017, and most recently Forever and Ever X Infinity in 2021, both of which were very solid New Found Glory albums that to me proved that they still had it. Which brings us to the last question: what is their lasting impact and legacy? Well, first, along with Blink, Sum 41, Simple Plan, and Good Charlotte, they were really one of the defining bands of that golden era of pop punk in the 2000s, when it was truly a mainstream genre that was all over MTV and the radio. And I don't know about you, but I miss the era of Dickies shorts and Hurley shirts more than just about anything. But aside from that, I think that even though they probably sold the least albums out of any of those bands, they really had an outsized influence on the future of pop punk. Like I said earlier, All Time Low and The Story So Far are both named after New Found Glory lyrics, and when Fall Out Boy went into the studio for From Under the Cork Tree, they went to the same producer who did the first couple New Found Glory albums and handed him those albums and said, "We want to sound like this." Chad Gilbert also produced Homesick for A Day to Remember, the album that made them one of the biggest bands of their generation, who has in turn influenced hundreds and hundreds of other bands. And even though I don't think they meant to, they essentially created the entire genre of easycore. Number one, they actually created the term easycore as sort of the opposite of hardcore. They have an old shirt that says Newfound Glory, Coral Gables, Easy Core on it, I think. They also did the Easy Core tour with A Day to Remember. And when you listen to bands like 4 Year Strong, Set Your Goals, and Chunk No Captain Chunk, they were all essentially built on the idea of pop punk with breakdowns that Newfound Glory pioneered a decade earlier. And in my personal opinion, they probably have the strongest overall discography of any band of the genre. Even though I don't personally love Coming Home, I think it's objectively a good album, and they just really don't have any weak spots in their entire discography. And I don't know how much longer they plan on sticking around, but however long it is, I'm here for it.
So, I guess this is going to be the end of it. You've seen our house, you've seen our backyard, you've even seen our bathrooms where we spend.
You've seen how we're not as rich as all the other people on.
All right, my friends, that does it for this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Also, I want to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially those of you who support at the true cult level or above. Patrons get access to every one of my videos and podcasts early. There are members-only channels in my Discord that I'm super active in. I do giveaways. There's also a way to have me review your music. So if any of that sounds cool, hit the link in the description of this video. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now, but I will see you next time.